any technical difficulties. I'm going to get us started. So hello, everybody. Welcome to the Green Team Network panel. We are really excited that you're here on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for coming. Before we go too far, I just would like to, here we go, just 1 second. I would just like to take a moment and acknowledge the Lummi, Nooksack, and Coast Salish tribes, whose enduring care of the land and water and continued generosity of knowledge and resources serves as a model for us all. My hope is as education continues to grow, excuse me, non-natives seek ways to support the current cultural livelihoods of the original peoples of this place through financial backing, allyship, and the upholding of treaty rights. Just take a moment, and if you can acknowledge the land that you are on, thank you. So to get us started again, welcome. My name is Priscilla Brotherton, and I am the program manager for Sustainable Schools, which is a program of resources where we work to protect the environment and the communities of the Central Salish Sea region, as well as our climate. Joining me today are Chelsea Hilmo, if you can just give a wave. Chelsea is one of the educators at Sustainable Schools who has done lots of research and design for the Green Team Network program. Janet Marino, who you can't see, but she is Resources Zoom B, and she is the program director for resources and also our tech expert today. So if you have any technical issues, please contact her. We're also joined by 4 stellar panelists. And if you guys just would like to wave when I say your name, we have Elizabeth Schmitz, Rod Pemble, Laura Plout, and Mark Peterson. You'll get a little bit more of an introduction as we introduce them a little bit later. And our housekeeping basically is that, our agenda, excuse me, is basically that we would like to proactively answer the why, what, and how of the Green Team Network. And while the panelists will dig into some of the benefits of green teams for schools and districts. Other housekeeping, there's a question and answer feature that we would like you to use. If you have questions throughout, we will address those towards the end. If we don't get to your questions, we will definitely try to answer those via email. We have your email because you signed up, so thank you. And I already said that moment about Janet. So also at the very end, we will share a link if you are interested in learning more and potentially piloting this program. There's an interest form that you can sign up, and we'll share that link at the end as well. So I am gonna just switch my screen a second. So I would like to talk about the story of why. Why did we start this program? Students were asking for it, in a nutshell. For example, I have an email from a student in 7th grade who sent this. I've been doing my best as a 13-year-old to help better educate other people on climate change and global warming. For my latest project, I'm trying to get recycling bins in the classrooms in my school that don't currently have them. The reason behind this is because I was in class one day and I saw kids throwing away soda cans because there wasn't a bin for them, only the paper recycling bin and trash can. So I wanted to ask you how we should get recycling bins and compost bins for each classroom. Let me know if you can help. Let me know if you can help us make this happen. The excitement is so cute. So we get emails like this. We also get emails from teachers. This is a similar request. This is from a 4th grade teacher. A lot of us have a hard time teaching kids to just landfill everything. We have been trying our best to recycle in our own rooms, but I think enough teachers are on board that we might be ready to take a school-wide step. We have a passionate group of 4th and 5th graders, the Green Team, that we have recruited that are trying to get the whole school on board. We are already underway, but would love to hear more about other models out there or ways to streamline. The reason we wanted to do this is because we can help. Sustainable Schools has been teaching about conserving our natural resources since the 1980s. We have a long history of helping teachers encourage their students to take action. We have a history right here on this panel as well. Rod who now works for Sanitary Services, is one of the first folks that started a recycling program. Just a quick shout out to Rod. So how does it work? What is the Green Team Network? We are exactly that. We are hoping to promote exactly that. It's a supported network that helps Green Teams identify and complete projects in their classroom, school, or district. It's a collaborative effort to learn from each other across the county and potentially across the state. That's the network part. The network supports the tools, training, and guidance, as well as a framework that ensures success. The network allows for student voice, asking our youth to identify and solve problems they see. It's one of the most, we feel, important parts. And lastly, the Green Team Network can help connect projects with curriculum, offering authentic learning across disciplines. But the expert in that area is here. We're so lucky to bring that point home a little bit more. Let me introduce Elizabeth Schmitz, the Environmental and Sustainability Education Program Supervisor at the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction. She has a really big business card. Elizabeth?
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen and my presentation. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. So thank you. All right, let me make this bigger. Do y'all ever find that when you're in a Zoom, you can't access all of your tools because the thing's blocking the thing? I'm feeling a little giggly today. Priscilla had us all giggling, and now I'm having a hard time getting my composure back. I'll just be honest. Okay, so thank you all again. I'm the Environmental Sustainability Ed Program Supervisor, and I'm so happy to be representing the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction here with you today. And I always like to point out just a couple items from our vision, our mission, and our values. First, our vision is that all students are prepared for post-secondary pathways, careers, and civic engagement. And I feel so lucky to be part of environmental and sustainability education because there is a genuine civic engagement component that comes with environmental sustainability ed, as we just heard in Priscilla's example from the student. And then we have a value of ensuring equity and achieving excellence through continuous improvement and a focus on the whole child, all of which are elements that are supported by environmental and sustainability education. In particular, hands-on real-world experiential education is an equity move for our students who sometimes are the ones who are sometimes the least served by traditional classroom education are the ones who are best served by environmental and sustainability education. And I want to also just point out that one thing we can do with environmental and sustainability ed and partnering with our community-based organizations is to demonstrate the strength and cultural knowledge that student, family, and community can bring into the classroom if we provide that supportive structure for them to do that. and it honors the diversity of our student population. So I'm going to make a bold claim that using school buildings and grounds as a learning laboratory is an effective way to improve student engagement, increase real world relevance, and improve student health and academic outcomes. So I'm going to briefly run through some research highlights. And I think before I do that, if you are watching this webinar or a panelist, why don't you take a second to think about some research you know of, or a real world anecdotal example of a benefit you have seen for a student of integrated hands-on experiential learning, in particular, if you know of one in an outdoor setting or school garden setting. And just jot yourself down a note to remind yourself about that example. Everybody's looking for their pens and papers. That makes me so happy. Why am I doing this? I am doing this because I want you to think about this a little bit. All right, take just a couple seconds to wrap up your thought. And then as I'm going through some of the research, if I touch on the point that you made, make a note of it on your piece of scratch paper that you listed your example on. Okay, so I'm going to give this overview. I'm going to share with you some infographics from the Children and Nature Network as well. So this is the first infographic from the Children and Nature Network. And I'll have to go back through and drop the links into the chat, or I can send them out to you after when I'm in share screen mode. It's kind of hard for me to do that, but nature can improve health and well-being. And that's true not only for children of all ages, but also for moms who are expecting. So there's actually research to show better fetal growth, healthier birth weights, improved eyesight, in the form of reduced nearsightedness, and then increased vitamin D levels. In addition, when our students go outside on their school grounds or have access to parks and green spaces, they have increased physical activity, reduced risk of obesity. And there's research showing that outdoor play increases the likelihood that girls will remain active into adolescence, and that children are better able to cope with stress when they live near trees and other greenery. There's also a newer research study out from, the research was conducted here in Washington, although the university isn't in Washington, but students in middle schools that have trees planted on their campus have better academic outcomes. And in addition, our social emotional well-being is supported when we learn in nature. And there's demonstrated improved relationship skills, reduced stress, anger, and aggression, better teamwork and problem-solving skills as well, although those aren't on this infographic. And a little bit more about academic outcomes. Performance is boosted across multiple content areas. Creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving are enhanced. Focus is improved, and the greener the setting, the better the focus. Students show increased engagement and enthusiasm for learning, and their behavior is improved. They have more impulse control and less disruptive behavior, especially those students who tend to struggle the most in a sit-down indoor classroom environment. They're the ones that often the teachers just can't believe this stellar student that's been hiding in their classroom in plain sight all this time. So those are two infographics, again, from the Children and Nature Network. And now I want to switch gears to focus in a little bit on some research coming from a book called Education and the Environment by Gerald A. Lieberman from 2013. And he really focused his research on the benefits of environment. He calls it environment-based education. I'm calling it environmental and sustainability education. So we've talked about increased academic achievement, improved engagement. There's also the outcome of better preparation for college and careers, solutions-based learning, improved teacher morale and school climate, and increased community and parent engagement. One of my favorite quotes from Concrete Middle School student, "It was hard because we had to step out of our comfort zone, but you remember what you learned because you got to be involved and do it." And then interestingly, Lieberman's research, not only from his book in 2013, but from an earlier study, I think from 1998, showed the most dramatic increase in English language arts for students. And so oftentimes we hear that our students can't go outside to learn, or we can't teach science because students have to learn how to read and write and do math first. But actually, when we put the real world context for learning into how students are learning their English language arts and their mathematics, students improve more dramatically. So as an example, there's some data on the right-hand side of my screen, and I'll just highlight this quote from a teacher in the Wahluke School District who said that real-world environmental learning experiences support our multilingual and emergent English learners. So when you put students in a greenhouse and they're nurturing plants and learning English words that they already know the Spanish words for them, they're more successful at learning the English words. It seems like a pretty obvious connection to make. And then for math, again, our student from Concrete Middle School, maybe a different one, said, "We used our math and writing grants. It was good. I can use these skills later in life." And that's what I'm just going to say again and again, is these are real world skills that our students get to apply in the classroom to their everyday learning, and it makes it more exciting and applicable later in life. And then in science, I was in Kentucky. I grew up out here in the Pacific Northwest, but I spent about 15 years in Kentucky. So I like this quote from a student at Henry Clay High School in Kentucky, which is a Department of Education green ribbon school. I'll talk more about that program later. When we got to go outside and really do science for ourselves, it made the understanding a lot better. I've seen a lot of students making better grades now because they understand science better. Again, our students learn best away from abstract concepts and in terms of real world experiences. So just a little bit about the benefits of partnering with community-based organizations. There are many. I don't think I've got them all covered here, but our community-based organizational partners support best practices in science, environmental, and sustainability education pedagogy. So there's actually a lot that goes into learning how to be a good educator in outdoor settings, as an example. And there's a lot that goes into ensuring that we're teaching about often challenging environmental issues in a way that allows students to come to their own conclusions, and that takes into account their own cultural background. So it's really important to have the expertise that our community-based organizations can bring to our schools and our districts. As I've said, they offer this locally relevant real-world context for learning, and they can support our teachers, families, and administrators in meeting school and district goals, not only for academic achievement, but for social emotional learning, and for what happens on our campuses in terms of environmental impact and cost, student health and wellness, and other factors as well. And then our community-based organizations can help students see how science, technology, engineering, and math are used in the world. And when students see educators from our community-based organizations coming into a school and leading lessons, they see another career path that they might not have known existed before. So I want to highlight a couple of STEM teaching tools that are from the University of Washington's Life Lab, which is part of the College of Education and our partners in our Climb Time project. One is called Getting Their Hands Dirty, Engaging Learners in Authentic Science Practices Outside the Classroom. One is called How to Launch STEM Investigations that Build on Student and Community Interests and Expertise. And a third really excellent connection to the content of this webinar: what is the role of informal science education in supporting the vision for K-12 science education? Lots of great resources there. And if you just go to, if you Google STEM teaching tools, you can find there, I think they're up to 70 tools now, but I highly recommend these three as a starting place. And then I just briefly wanted to touch on some of the work I'm doing at OSPI, Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction in particular. So I'm the administrator for the Washington Green Ribbon Schools program. So the Green Ribbon Schools program is focused on these three pillars: 1, reduced environmental impact and cost; 2, improved health and wellness; 3, integrated environmental and sustainability instruction. And I'll come back to the Green Ribbon Schools program, but any of our Green Schools programs are really essential partners in providing that boots on the ground and technical expertise at the local level to help schools and districts do the work of the three pillars. I also coordinate implementation and the revision of the environmental and sustainability literacy plan. We have education standards also that are from the legislature. And then I'm supporting and implementing 2 legislative funding provisos, the Climb Time and the Field STEM. And if you would like to access many, many success stories from green schools across Washington state, you can check out the highlights report from the US Department of Education, which dates back to our first honorees in 2012 all the way through last year. And on Earth Day, we'll be announcing our 2021 honoree. And if you would like to register for that webinar, I'll drop this link in the chat once I'm not sharing my screen anymore. We have 10 districts and 26 schools that have been recognized, and it's open to private and public schools, as well as early childhood programs. And my contact information is here, my website, I should say our website, and you can also sign up for email and text alerts, and we're on social media, so we'd love to have you join us there. And that's it. Thanks, Priscilla.
I know I'm muted. Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you so much. And if you, I put some of the links that you offered in the chat, but I didn't get very far. So I put STEM and Climb Time. Please feel free to put a bunch more in. So that's the context of curriculum and how it connects really to teachers and what and the work you're doing in schools. I want to share my screen, and also, and now I would like to introduce Rod Pemble, who is the recycling and, I'm on the wrong, see, good thing, okay. Recycling and safety manager for Sanitary Service Company. And he has been really, Rod has been super flexible in helping schools accomplish some of the goals that they want to accomplish. He helped start the Food Plus program in schools, and I've asked him to come and talk to you about how schools potentially could save money, particularly in waste, to help send those earnings elsewhere. So Rod, it's all you. Oh, and you're on mute.
That's like every meeting I get on, I'm on mute because I have a two-way radio behind me. The drivers are calling in. I have telephones ringing. So uh, anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with everybody. And it's really interesting to hear Elizabeth's take, having worked with Priscilla and Mark on several green school initiatives, to hear it from the state level and sort of that overview is really exciting. It brought back a lot of memories for me from more than 30 years ago when I worked with school districts in Tennessee, because we were doing outdoor education for exactly the same reasons. There was a very inspired director of a school district, a county school district, and he firmly believed in all of those same objectives and sort of the strategies that you use. All I've done really is take that next step to say, all right, inside the building, there are also things that green schools can do. And what I think I'd like to challenge myself and districts to do is, let's see if we can put those two things together, so that kids are doing things that help inside the buildings, which help with the bottom line, but also helping them understand how they use materials and resources in their day-to-day activities, whether it's at school, whether it's at home, whether it's where mom or dad work. Kids need to become educated about how we use those resources. And the SSC program has helped school districts do that. What I'd like to do now is try to blend some of those outdoor activities with some of those waste reduction and recycling activities. And I think there's ways that we can do that. Because I agree with you. It's more fun to be outside learning. And I think it sticks with kids more. One term I guess I didn't hear was ownership, but I think that is a real key to children of all ages, K through 12, really taking pride in their school. I think you have to get outside the building sometimes to do that, to really help them do a project that then every time they come back around, even after they've graduated from that school, they point to that, say, hey, I did that. I built that bed. You know, that's why that garden is there, is because I helped with that. So the SSC effort clearly is on cardboard, bottles and cans, food scraps, food sold paper, and districts can save money, especially with the Food Plus program. One unique aspect of that is that it's locally based. All of our compostable materials stay in Whatcom County. Most of our recyclable materials leave Whatcom County. So compost is a unique opportunity for school districts to both help children and staff understand how we can waste less of those materials, as well as saving money for the district, which then can be put to more positive uses. So I put a PowerPoint together. It has a bunch of numbers and equations that are not complicated, but they take time. So I asked Priscilla to forward that out to anybody who gets a hold of her. And I would love to start that conversation with your district of, where are you now? Where do you want to be? What are the opportunities that you have in all of these areas? And how can SSC play a role in the services we provide to the district, including meeting with teachers, meeting with custodial staffs, meeting and working with students. Those are all things that we can help with, as well as on the more maybe administrative side, kind of looking at, well, what are you spending now and where are places that we can save? So I'm here. I don't cost you anything. So please take advantage of our services and our experience.
Thank you, Rod. For those of you that are outside of the sanitary service, SSCs, outside of that territory that they haul for, there's Nooksack Valley disposal that we don't yet have a relationship with, but are always interested in forming one. And they serve some other school districts that they serve Dixsack Valley and Linden, if I'm right. Okay. And not Meridian. You SSC is still Meridian? Yeah, okay.
Right. We do
Okay.
Bellingham, Meridian, Ferndale, and Blaine, and Mount Baker.
Mount Baker. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Rod.
Sure.
There are obviously other ways for when you conserve resources, you're saving water, you're saving energy, you're saving all sorts of things. But back to what Elizabeth was saying, there's much more to it than that. But just financially, there is savings that the school district can reap. Ooh, how about that word? Okay. Laura Plout. She is trouble and my friend, so I can say that. Laura's here to talk more about other benefits of green teams. She and I have worked together on some projects in coordination when we're talking about the CBOs that are working together. And Laura, take it from there, and I will stop sharing my screen so we can see your face.
Excellent, thank you. And you guys can hear me in my weird phone and computer world. Okay, well, I am glad I didn't work too hard on slides, because between Elizabeth and Rod, I think you hit most of my point, and I just get to say, preach it, everybody. But for those of you who don't know Common Threads, we garden, cook, and eat with kids, usually in school. So this year it's been a little bit different. But the reason I was so excited to come be a part of this conversation is I just so firmly believe, and I'm guessing I am preaching to a choir, that kids deserve and are capable of so much more than a consumer relationship with the world. And when we start to put kids in a place where they see themselves as producers and stewards and caretakers of the environment, then that's where the good stuff happens. And I think it's not just good stuff for the environment or good stuff for academics, but it's also the joy and the sense of agency and the sense of, I mean, Priscilla was reading those hopeful quotes from kids earlier of how do I know that I can make a difference in the world? And here we are with all of these opportunities. And I think, Priscilla, your green team concept just has the potential to build bridges between so many different facets of a school, whether it's the cafeteria and the custodial staff and the community-based nonprofits that are helping out, and the teaching staff and the counselors, because we all come together. I remember years ago when Common Threads was just starting, and I said with naive passion, I said, you know, we're just sort of trying to build a bridge between teaching and learning and food services. And I kid you not, a food services staff said to me, Laura, no one wants that bridge. And I'm happy to say that I don't think that's true anymore. And I think we're in a place where we're seeing so many more districts move to more farm and school garden sourcing, and we're seeing just so many different ways to build bridges between the classroom, the garden, the cafeteria, the buildings and grounds, and the fact that my son now goes to school in a district where there's an executive staff member who has sustainability in his title feels like progress. So Mark, so glad you're here. The opportunities that we've got for kids to really start to understand this thing we call trash as misplaced treasure. And from a school gardening perspective, I get particularly excited about the idea of closed systems. I'm glad that Rod and all of those resources for us to get things out to the right places exist, but also, you know, I think there's so much opportunity, and I think green teams could be a great resource for thinking about how do we take things that have maybe in the past been seen as waste and just make sure that they're right placed and right resourced. We spent a lot of time working on the garden to cafeteria pipeline, but I don't think we've yet cracked the, to my satisfaction, the cafeteria to garden pipeline and the compost piece of that. And I won't say a whole lot more just because that way we can get on to the other parts. But one of my favorite quotes is from Orrin Hesterman, who wrote a book called Fair Food. And he says, our relationship to food is the most basic relationship we have with our environment, whether we're environmentalists or not. And I agree with him. And I also think that probably our relationship with waste or our relationship with any kind of resource is really where we can tap into our deepest and most heartfelt environmentalism.
Excellent job, even without slides. Thank you, Laura. I just want to touch upon just briefly, we are talking about all aspects of sustainability, and Chelsea will get a little bit deeper into this in a minute, but our expertise, resources expertise, has often been in waste. It's also in energy and water and moving into school grounds and other things like that. So we are very lucky that one of the 8 districts in Bellingham has chosen to hire a person who is our facilities and sustainability director. And we're so grateful that I'm speaking for everybody on the planet, because we're all really grateful that it's happened. And I'd like to introduce Mark. I'm going to stop. Mark Peterson, who is the director of sustainabilities at Bellingham Public Schools, also formerly the Sustainable Connections. Let's get as many sustainable words in as we can. Sustainable Connections as the Towards Zero Waste director. He and I have worked together for a long time, but the district is lucky enough to have him work for them now. And I will stop and you can go, Mark.
Thanks, Priscilla. That's great. And it's really great to be here today. Let me see if I can go ahead and share my screen and make some things happen here. The reality of having multiple screens going at the same time. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get to that PowerPoint screen. That one's showing yet? There we go. Has that one showing up? And you can still hear me okay? There we go. Hey, I'm starting to get this figured out. Okay, we still good? Everybody can see that? Well, look at that. I've got a title and everything. So I was recently hired as the Director of Facilities and Sustainability for the Bellingham Public Schools. And I'm just really excited to be here today and see some friendly faces. You know, I've worked with Laura and Rod and Priscilla and others, and I can really 100% echo what Elizabeth said, is that the community partners provide an immense amount of resources and value to any school district that is willing to engage them. And I think you do end up with different and better outcomes. One of the things that I wanted to talk a bit today about, something that the Bellingham Public Schools has done, is they specifically wanted to call out sustainability in their actual job description and title there. And it was kind of interesting is that I really wanted to make this was a big part, make sure this was a large part of the job when I got here. And it in fact is. There is a huge commitment to it. And we're excited to do that. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and why this is important, specifically in terms of green teams. And this is, you know, we have in my job description, I was looking at, you know, how I would prepare for this. And I looked back through the job description of what I had in terms of what we had for sustainability. And I really want to focus a little bit on this key piece here of district support for the integration of eco-literacy and sustainability principles. that's a huge thing to have a commitment from the superintendent all the way down that says this is something that we're going to do, and we're going to actually have a district leadership level that's going to help us see this through. And so I think it says a lot about what Bellingham Public Schools is trying to do, and being a good community steward, but also how that directly reflects to the teaching and learning that's happening in our schools every day, and how we can create that whole human being that we're looking for, that has well-rounded perspective about everything. And what I think this does is it provides community leadership. And I think that schools have the opportunity to provide leadership in so many different areas, whether it's education or specifically in things that's currently going on in the Bellingham Public Schools, like equity, diversity, and inclusion training, and really taking that forward and making that something that they want to promote and really commit to. Developing sustainability goals and objectives is also something that we want to show as community leadership. We want to show that so the rest of our community can do that same thing. And kind of like what Rod was saying earlier, this is not just about a big school district. It's also about what can we do at home? How can these children that are in our schools every day learn and take those same sustainability practices home and teach their parents? And so it becomes this nice circle of we provide that community leadership, and then these students come back and provide community leadership back to their parents, and just around and around and around again. And hopefully we end up at a better place. So we're really excited about that. And we want to share our commitment. One of the things that we really want to do is to share that we are committed to this and actually be held accountable. That's something that I'm going to ask of our community. Are we meeting your needs? Are we doing what you would like us to do? Are we engaging in the sustainable practices that seem to make sense for you? And then being true and honest and saying, here's where we have chances to improve. Here's what we've been able to do. And here's where we're going to be better. So I think that's one thing that we really want to do moving forward, is communicate that we are committed to this. We are committed to it for a long term. And this position was created with that intent in mind. Priscilla, you got to love this slide, right? Because this is super cool. This is all about green teams. And I thought about this and like, what and how is this going to relate to students? Okay. And so, part of this is self-serving in my own end. And that is that I can't, and I don't want to, and I shouldn't want to create a sustainability plan on my own. This needs to be a plan that engages multiple different stakeholders, and who better stakeholders to help us develop a plan than the students within our own district. So part of my job description is to help develop a district-wide sustainability plan. And I can't do that on my own. And so when I think of kids nowadays, I think about the different perspectives that they have. I think about all the different things that it is that they can do, and how they look at the world in a different way. And maybe they don't hold on to some of those things that we have in the past. The other thing that I really was concerning me is that there's a lot of research out there right now that children, especially that middle-aged or middle school to high school, is really feeling the anxiety and pressure of climate change. And I don't think we're doing a great job of addressing that right now and being true to what they're feeling. And so I feel that if we integrate these kind of things and we give green teams an opportunity to do something, make some sort of effort towards sustainability, that it will help alleviate some of that anxiety. At least it'll give them an opportunity to do something that might help them feel better about how they can affect climate change in a positive way. And like everybody has said, these are opportunities for additional learning. Specifically in my perspective, I've been asked and tasked with trying to find ways that we can engage students in our sustainability effort at a very deep level, whether or not it's benchmarking our energy performance through schools, through a statistics class, whether it's a waste characterization study, whether it's communication. We're looking for interdisciplinary ways that we can engage these students all the way from, elementary through potentially a senior project. So that's something that I have my eyes on in the future. And certainly pride in your school and community, and feeling good that your school's a high performer. And kids love their school, and we want to create that sense of community. And I'm looking to do that through the schools, whether or not it's the oldest school in our district or the newest school in our district. And I want to create that same sense of community at Roosevelt Elementary, which is one of our olders, is the same sense of community that we have in Seahome, because we're all striving towards the same goal of increased sustainability. And then obviously leaving a legacy. you know, these green teams can get something started and they can do these projects. And I wanted to show this next slide of, this is a great example of experiential learning at Seaholm High School. We were able to leverage community partnerships. I had a little bit of a hand in this, of getting about 100 panels donated. So we have a 100 kilowatt solar array on Seaholm High School. And we were able to engage the students and actually have them carry the panels up onto the building, put them on the roof, help assemble them, and actually have that hands-on experience. So just a great opportunity for that experiential learning. And I can guarantee you that those kids, and in fact, I recognize a couple of these kids from the Sustainability Club at Seaholm that I gave a presentation to. So like, how cool is that? Like, you know, they'll always remember that. And, you know, I really think that right now that this is a unique opportunity for us with COVID. We're coming out of this in a different way. And I really do believe that all of these items on the left there, we are at a path of what are we going to do? Are we going to take the path of the least resistance and go right back to the way it was before, single-use items, disposable PPE, you name it? Or are we going to take the other path that's going to address waste reduction, water conservation, or our built environment, toxics reduction, and indoor air quality that makes sense? So I just think it offers us an opportunity. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. And it's, again, thanks so much for doing this, Priscilla. I appreciate you putting this together.
I know I'm muted. Okay. So nice to have you. Thank you, Mark. Our hope is that every district has a clone. So we'll keep working on that. Okay, we've got about a short amount of time. I just want to run through how this all works. I'm going to share my screen again and very briefly introduce Chelsea. This is the nuts and bolts. So Chelsea Hilmo has spent the last 2 years digging into the issues of sustainability in schools. She's studied models from across the nation. She's helped design a program that we believe will work as well in Everson as it will in Fairhaven, really. And it's still a pilot, and there's so much room for sussing and nuancing depending on the need of the school and depending on the need of the students. So what we have here is the bones, and Chelsea is going to explain all that she has done. And please put questions in the Q&A so we can get to those if you have any, and things that we haven't thought of. We'd really appreciate it. So Chelsea, it's all you.
All righty. So can everyone, is Dee's looking at the PowerPoint? Okay, perfect. So great, thank you. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about kind of how this Green Team Network works. So the first thing will be the schools build a green team. This can be an after-school club, a classroom, grade band, or even school-wide. All that is really needed to form green teams at these schools is one adult that is involved with the school and at least 2 interested students. So I'm going to share an example of maybe what this might look like. So a student or teacher notices that there's a lot of paper being thrown into the trash that has only been used on one side. They also notice that bathroom sinks are left running as well, and lights in certain rooms are always left on. Deciding to do something about this, they call us resources for help. We provide them with training and a recruitment kit that will help them form a green team with permission, of course, from their administration. And we also would like to note that if a class or a grade band chooses to be the green team of the school, we are able to provide connections and resources to curricula. So kind of help those classrooms make an even bigger impact at their school. So after the green team has been formed, resources will provide the green team with a survey that will help them assess their school sustainability in a specific area or overall. The survey asks questions that will help the green team determine which project to take on that is feasible. Oops, hold on. Okay. So I mentioned pathways, and the pathways that we are thinking that schools can take on, or these green teams can take on, involve water, waste, energy, school gardens and grounds, healthy school buildings, and also transportation. Those are just some pathways that potentially a project could fall under. All right, so after the green team has filled out their survey, they will pick the pathway and project. So for example, the survey results show that the pathway where the most impact can be made falls under waste. The green team is also able to determine that the most feasible project to take on first would be getting classrooms to use goose paper, which is good on one side paper. Resources will provide and guide the green team in conducting an audit at their school to assess where the problem areas are and get a baseline. When the green team has picked their project, they start on their project and they begin educating others at their school. So in our example, the green teams spread the word around to encourage teachers and students to save their goose paper. They create posters to hang up around the school, educating students and staff about the benefits of using goose paper in their classrooms. The green team could also choose to lead an assembly educating the student body about waste. Resources can help by providing the green team with a script for the assembly and kind of maybe any support or guidance they may need there. Additionally, the green team could also ask that their story be placed in the school newsletter so that others can learn about their efforts. So after the green teams have completed and have been successful with their project, they will report back to us at Resources through what we're calling kind of a report card. So this report card is just kind of basically a form asking the green teams questions about like what their project was, how it went, what they learned, and the amount of resources they were able to save by doing their project. After they have given us their report, we Resources will assess and provide a certification and recognition. And then with permission from the school and the green team, Resources will share the green team's success with other schools and districts, as well as in our own newsletter and social media platforms. The green teams then, of course, can continue making their schools more sustainable by taking on additional projects. And that is kind of a very brief overview of how the green teams can work and how we can help support that at schools.
So great. We are so on time, so close to being on time. There aren't any questions in the Q&A because we have done such a great job of answering all questions, but I would just like to open this up for a minute. We have questions for ourselves and have planted some questions, but Elizabeth and Laura in particular, we all went to the Green Strides tour for Oak Harbor School District. There was a school there that to me really pushed this was obviously pre-COVID and really pushed this point of that we can do more, we can do better. And they were a little bit of a role model. And I'm wondering if either one of you, and maybe Elizabeth, you could start because you had a closer relationship, explain a little bit about how the learning took place in a classroom and how it manifests outside of the class.
Sure, I'd be happy to give a couple examples. And I also just wanted to say in relation to Mark's comment about alleviating anxiety that I really do believe that action leads to hope and hope leads to action, and it's a continuously reinforcing cycle. And I think we saw that on the Green Strides tour too. So some of the things that we saw were that each classroom had their own garden bed in the school's interior courtyard. And all of the students in that classroom were learning content related to the school garden in the classroom, but then they were also responsible for managing and maintaining their own school garden bed, and a lot of them had different themes. We saw another interior courtyard that was for chickens, and there were a certain group of students who used their recess time to go and take care of the chickens and really connected there. And then we had students who were using waste audits as a means of implementing math and thinking about waste reduction and composting on school grounds as a math activity as well as a waste reduction activity. Are those the kinds of examples you were thinking of, Priscilla?
Perfect. Laura, did you want to add anything?
And well, yeah, I mean, I was so struck. What struck me most was the pride and the confidence that the students showed. I mean, walking into an interior courtyard garden and having a second or third grader explain to me with a pretty high level of sophistication why they had a passive solar system and how it was working for them, and to have the same experience with kids who were managing the worm bins, and then to have these high school students, and I can't recall if it was a robotics club or a CTE program, but just the level of linkages and connections. And it really did remind me that at its best, this kind of work is not an additional responsibility on someone's plate so much as it is a much more compelling way to do the things that are already on people's plates in a way that is joyful and engaging for students.
Very true. And I want to just also, I'm still muted? No, I'm not muted. Thank you. Rod put something in the chat about district leadership behind those, any of that push. And I think that's the one thing that we have found with our Green Classrooms program is if it was just a teacher that we went in and did projects with the class, that was great. But then the teacher left and the kids went to another grade and it's all sort of falls by the wayside. And I think that's another attempt of the Green Team program is that it stays. It stays no matter who comes and goes. At least that's our goal. So I did send this to all the superintendents, just so you know. Anybody want to comment on any of that? No. Yes. I don't want to. I just don't want to drop it.
Well, I'll just comment real quick. And obviously, I'm a bit biased with the district that I happen to be in. But to your point, Rod, what they need to do is hire somebody like me, because Dr. Baker specifically asked me to hold him accountable to the sustainability goals in the district when he hired me. And so I think that's a part of it, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be them. It's actually committing to a position like this that has this as an integral part of facilities. And that's kind of coming back to what Elizabeth said, buildings and grounds is such a great opportunity to provide this experiential outdoor learning. Every school district has a buildings and grounds office, and it would be relatively easy to integrate a position like mine into most districts across the state and the nation.
Mark.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mark or Rod, I would love to hear you also comment on how green teams might help custodians or grounds and maintenance, but I'm sorry, I don't want to get off that subject. Sorry, Elizabeth. Did you
No worries. I think it's a really great and a difficult question, and one that I'm grappling with myself. So one thing I'm really interested in doing is gathering a group of people in positions like Mark. I only know of a few, and seeing if we can elevate their work and success stories to WASDA or other organizations that work with administrators, because it's a challenge. It's a good challenge for us to grapple together.
I'll just kind of jump in there. I think, one of the ways that I would like to integrate green teams, and again, I'm kind of green in multiple senses in this job, But I really do want students and green teams to help inform what it is what we are doing sustainability wise. And I think that the at least the Bellingham Public Schools has done a great job of integrating some sort of student representative on their panels, whether it's the Promise K or the Central Kitchen or the See Home Design. So I think that it would be really great to have those students be represented as the green team students that have shown some commitment also be the ones that are selected to be on the steering committee, if you will, and a stakeholder for the sustainability plan moving forward for the district. So that's an initial way. I've got all sorts of ideas and we're out of time, but we can talk about those on how we can integrate them in the future.
We are out of time, but you could stay after if you want. No, that's okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for helping mold this community in so many ways. And I really appreciate it as somebody who has lived here for a long time and wanting to see things change. My son has grown and moved on, and I feel like, oh, we still want to make change. So thank you for those of you that abandoned your Tuesday afternoon sunshine to join us. We will share this far and wide because we need more people to know about what's going on. And if you are interested, oops, I have to share something. Let me share the link. If you are, it's a really long one. I could have done a short one, but I didn't. In the chat, if you would like to.
Well, Priscilla, I attached that shortened link from the PowerPoint into the chat box.
Oh,
yeah, those links.
Here it is again. You can just keep signing up. Just an interest form if you're interested. The one last thing I do want to mention for those of you that are here from a classroom or school, we are trying to connect with Huxley to have interns to help with this at a school level for those schools and teachers that just can't necessarily do it themselves. We're trying to also create some sort of internship with Western Huxley students. So thank you everybody. Have a wonderful sunshiny afternoon and rest of your day.